The roses cost $47. I remember that because I stood in the hotel gift shop for 10 minutes, deciding between the red ones and the pink ones, and the woman behind the counter finally said, "Honey, red says passion. Pink says you forgot her birthday." I laughed and handed her my credit card. $47. The reservation at Zuma was $400, non-refundable. The flight from Charlotte to Miami, booked last minute, ran me $650. Add in the Uber from the airport and my grand romantic gesture totaled just over $1,100. $1,100 to watch my wife feed strawberries to another man while his hand crept up her thigh like he owned the deed to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Brian Lawson. I'm 38 years old. I spent 6 years in the Army before transitioning to civilian life and becoming a forensic accountant. I know that sounds boring. My wife certainly thought so. But there's something satisfying about following trails of numbers until they reveal the truth someone tried to hide. People think money is just currency. It's not. It's a confession. Every dollar tells a story if you know how to listen. Nicole and I had been married for 11 years. 2 kids, Emma, 9, and Tyler, 6. A 4-bedroom colonial in a good school district. 2 cars, both paid off. A retirement account that was actually funded. On paper, we were the American dream with a white picket fence and a golden retriever named Murphy. On paper. The cracks had been forming for a while. I can admit that now. Nicole traveled for work constantly. She was a regional sales manager for Vertex Pharmaceuticals, which meant conferences in Miami, client dinners in Chicago, team-building retreats in Phoenix. At least, that's what the calendar said. I never questioned it. I trusted her. After 11 years, you're supposed to trust each other, right? She mentioned the Miami trip casually on a Tuesday morning while I was making Emma's lunch. 3 days of compliance seminars, she said, rolling her eyes at her reflection in the microwave door as she applied lipstick. I'll probably die of boredom. Poor baby, I said, not looking up from the turkey sandwich I was assembling. Try not to fall asleep during the PowerPoints. She kissed my cheek, a quick peck, the kind that doesn't leave a mark. I'll text you when I land. She did text, and I texted back. And somewhere in that exchange, looking at her message that said, "Miss you already." With a little heart emoji, I decided to surprise her. My sister Karen agreed to watch the kids. "That's so romantic," she said when I told her my plan. "Nicole's lucky to have you." I believed that. God help me, I actually believed that. The Fontainebleau Miami Beach is the kind of hotel that makes you feel underdressed even in a suit. I walked through the lobby with my carry-on bag and those $47 roses, feeling like a man on a mission. I'd already confirmed Nicole's room number with a white lie to the front desk about being her husband and forgetting my key, which wasn't entirely a lie, I suppose. "Mr. Lawson?" The concierge, a young woman with a practiced smile, tilted her head. "Your wife stepped out about an hour ago. Would you like me to leave a message?" "No, thank you. I'll surprise her." How romantic. She actually clasped her hands together. Anniversary? Something like that. The conference halls were my first stop. I figured I'd catch her between sessions, whisk her away for an early dinner. I'd even prepared what I was going to say. Something about how I couldn't stand being apart, how much she meant to me, all the romantic nonsense that married people forget to say after a decade together. Except when I got to the conference level, there was nothing. Empty ballrooms. A sign advertising a wedding reception scheduled for Saturday. A maintenance crew setting up chairs for some future event. No pharmaceutical compliance seminars. No Vertex banners. No name badges or coffee stations or bored salespeople checking their phones. I stopped a hotel employee pushing a cart of linens. "Excuse me? Is there a corporate conference happening here this week? Vertex Pharmaceuticals?" She shook her head. "Nothing on this level until Saturday. You might check the business center?" I checked. Nothing. First red flag. I told myself there must be a mistake. Maybe the sessions were in a different building. Maybe I had the wrong floor. I pulled out my phone to text her and stopped. Because something felt wrong. That prickling sensation at the back of my neck that I hadn't felt since my second tour overseas. The instinct that says, don't move, don't speak, just observe. I pocketed the phone and went looking. The rooftop pool was one of those infinity affairs that made you feel like you could swim straight into the ocean. The Miami sun was brutal, glittering off the water like scattered diamonds, and I had to squint against the glare. I spotted her from 30 feet away. She was in a bikini I'd never seen. Black, expensive, the kind she would have said was too much for our community pool back home. Her skin was golden from what was clearly not her first day in the Florida sun. She looked happy, relaxed. The kind of relaxed she never looked at home with me. She wasn't alone. The man beside her was older, late 40s, maybe 50. Silver temples, the kind of tan you get from regular golf outings, a watch that probably cost more than my car. He was handsome in that executive way, all confidence and tailored swim trunks and practiced smile. He said something I couldn't hear, and she threw her head back laughing. I know I should have felt rage. I should have stormed over, made a scene, demanded explanations. That's what you see in the movies, right? The wronged husband, flipping tables and throwing punches, shouting accusations while beautiful people scatter. I didn't feel rage. I felt cold, like someone had reached into my chest and wrapped their fingers around my heart and squeezed until everything else went numb. I stepped behind a palm tree. I know how that sounds, hiding behind a palm tree like some cartoon spy, but there I was. And I watched. I watched my wife pick up a strawberry from the plate between them and bring it to his lips. I watched him bite. I watched her lean in and whisper something in his ear. I watched him laugh and pull her closer. I watched his hand settle on her thigh with the casual possessiveness of someone who had touched her 1,000 times before. She kissed his neck, lingered there, said something against his skin that made him smile. 20 minutes. I stood there for 20 minutes while my marriage dissolved in front of me like ice in the Miami heat. My military training kicked in. The part of my brain that had learned to function in chaos, to observe without reacting, to gather intelligence while the world burned around me. Observe. Document. Report. I took out my phone, 6 photos. Different angles. Timestamps, automatic. Evidence. They never saw me. They were too wrapped up in each other, in their private little world where husbands and children and 11 years of marriage didn't exist. I walked back through the lobby. That's when I noticed their room keys sitting on the concierge desk where she'd apparently left them for some errand. Both cards were in a little folder. Both printed with the same name, Ashford, D. She wasn't even registered as Nicole Lawson. I flew home on the next available flight. The roses stayed in a trash can at gate D7. I didn't text her. I didn't call. When she messaged me that night, "Seminars were brutal today, can't wait to come home," I replied with a smiley face and told her I missed her. On the plane, while the flight attendant offered me a complimentary beverage I didn't want, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I named it Exit Strategy. The next 3 days were an exercise in performance. Nicole texted regular updates about the conference that didn't exist. "Learning so much about compliance protocols," she wrote. "Team dinner ran late. Sorry for the delayed response." I imagined her typing those messages from a hotel bed, that silver-haired man beside her, maybe laughing at how gullible her husband was. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation without preparation is just emotion. It feels good for about 30 seconds. Then it costs you everything. I'd seen it in divorce cases I'd worked on professionally, watched men and women torch their negotiating positions because they couldn't keep their mouths shut. I wasn't going to be one of them. The kids came home from Karen's. I made dinner. I helped Emma with her math homework. I read Tyler his bedtime story. Where the Wild Things Are, his favorite. I tucked them in and kissed their foreheads and told them I loved them. Then I went to my office and started digging. The thing about being a forensic accountant is that you know where to look. Most people think hiding money is about secret accounts and offshore transfers. Sometimes it is. But usually, it's simpler. It's the cash withdrawal that doesn't match any purchase. It's the credit card charge in a city where you claim to be somewhere else. It's the discrepancy between what someone says and what the numbers tell you. Nicole had always let me handle the finances. "You're the numbers guy," she'd say with a wave of her hand. "I trust you." Ironic that. I started with our joint accounts. Sure enough, there they were. Cash withdrawals of $200 to $400, twice monthly, going back 18 months. Always on days she claimed to be at conferences or client meetings. I'd never noticed because I'd never thought to look. The credit card statements were worse. Hotels in cities where she had no scheduled business. A spa in Scottsdale when she'd supposedly been at a Chicago trade show. A jewelry store charge from 6 months ago that I didn't recognize. And no, she hadn't given me whatever she bought. Then I found the Venmo account. I didn't even know she had Venmo. She always said she didn't trust those payment apps, preferred real money. But there it was, linked to an email address I'd never seen, with transactions going back 2 years. Spa treatments. Lingerie shops. A wine club subscription. All the little luxuries of an affair, paid for in digital breadcrumbs. 2 years. I'd been a fool for 2 years. The morning after my discovery, I called Raymond Castellano. If you're ever unfortunate enough to need a divorce attorney in the Charlotte area, Ray is the guy you want on your side, and the guy you pray isn't representing your spouse. He's 63 years old, looks like someone's favorite grandfather, and has the legal instincts of a great white shark. I'd worked with him on a few forensic cases over the years. He knew me. More importantly, he knew my work. "Brian," he said when he answered, "this is either very good news or very bad news." "The second one." There was a pause. I could hear him leaning back in his chair. "Tell me," I told him. All of it. The trip to Miami, the photos, the financial trail. When I finished, there was a long silence. "You haven't confronted her yet?" "No." "Good, don't." He was already in attorney mode. "You have a prenup, correct? We drafted it before your wedding." "We do." "Infidelity clause?" "Yes." "Then we're going to build a case that would make a federal prosecutor weep with envy. I want documentation on everything. Photos, financial records, phone records. You have access to the family plan?" "I do." "Pull everything. And Brian, I'm going to recommend a private investigator, someone who can fill in the gaps legally, get us what we need for court." "Who?" "Gavin Price, former FBI, now private sector. He's not cheap, but he's worth every penny." I wrote down the number. Nicole came home on a Thursday evening, glowing with Miami sunshine and the particular radiance of a woman who'd spent 3 days doing exactly what she wanted. She dropped her suitcase in the foyer and wrapped her arms around me. "God, I missed you," she said. "Missed you too." I kissed her forehead. "How was the conference?" "Brutal." She kicked off her heels. 3 straight days of compliance updates and ethics training. I thought I was going to scream. "Sounds rough." "The worst part was the team dinners. You know how Derek gets after a few drinks?" She stopped herself, covered smoothly. "You know how executives get. All war stories and golf handicaps." "Derek." A name, finally. "Well," I said, my voice steady, "you're home now. Kids are at Karen's. I thought we could have a quiet dinner, just the two of us." Her smile flickered, just for a second. Guilt or relief, I couldn't tell. "That sounds perfect." I made her favorite, salmon with dill sauce, roasted asparagus. She talked about the fake conference, invented colleagues, fabricated presentations. I listened and nodded and asked follow-up questions, and she had answers for all of them. She'd rehearsed this. She'd probably rehearsed it on the plane, maybe while Derek Ashford slept beside her. After dinner, I poured her a glass of wine. She curled up on the couch looking content, looking like the woman I'd married. "I have something for you," I said. She perked up. "A gift?" "Something like that." I slid my phone across the coffee table. The screen showed the clearest of the photos. Nicole and Derek at the pool, her leaning into him, his hand on her thigh. Her face went through the stages of grief in 4 seconds flat. Shock, denial, anger, bargaining. I didn't wait for acceptance. "I flew to Miami to surprise you," I said, my voice flat and controlled. "I had reservations at Zuma, roses. I was going to take you dancing. I thought it would remind you why you married me. Brian. Instead, I found you at the rooftop pool, in a bikini I've never seen, with a man I now know as Derek Ashford, your vice president of sales. You were feeding him strawberries while his hand was sliding up your thigh. It wasn't, don't." The word came out hard enough to make her flinch. "I watched for 20 minutes. I know exactly what it was." She started crying. I'd expected that. Tears were Nicole's first line of defense, the weapon she'd deployed 1,000 times over 11 years to end arguments before they started. They'd always worked on me before. Not anymore. "Raymond Castellano will contact you tomorrow. He's my attorney. I suggest you find one of your own." "Brian, please, we can talk about this." "I'm done talking." I stood up. "I'll be sleeping in the guest room. Emma and Tyler will stay with me. If you try to take them, I'll file for emergency custody based on your ongoing affair with your direct supervisor. An affair that, by the way, violates about 6 sections of Vertex's employee handbook. You wouldn't, watch me." "Brian, wait." She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my wrist. "Just wait, please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" I turned to face her fully. "Explain how you've been lying to me for 2 years? Explain how every conference call, every late dinner, every business trip was actually time with him? Explain how you looked me in the eye every single day and told me you loved me while you were spreading yourself out for someone else?" She flinched like I'd struck her. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like, Nicole. Tell me how you'd come home from your conferences and kiss me hello with a mouth that had been on him. Tell me how you'd tuck our children into bed after spending the afternoon in a hotel room. Tell me how you could stand to look at yourself in the mirror every morning and not choke on your own hypocrisy." I was lonely. The words burst out of her, raw and ragged. "You were always working, always at the office or on your computer, or helping Karen with whatever crisis she invented that week. When was the last time you actually looked at me, Brian? Really looked at me? Is that the story you've been telling yourself? That I drove you to this? I'm not saying it's your fault. Good. Because it's not. You could have talked to me. You could have suggested counseling. You could have asked for a divorce. But you didn't do any of those things, Nicole. You know why? Because those options required honesty. They required effort. They required giving up the comfortable life I provided while you pursued your little adventure on the side." Tears were streaming down her face now, but I was beyond being moved by them. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is bouncing a check. You made a choice. Over and over again for 2 years you chose him. You chose lies. You chose to destroy our family rather than have one uncomfortable conversation." I pulled my arm free. "Good night, Nicole." I walked upstairs, closed the door, locked it. I sat on the edge of the guest bed and waited for my hands to shake. They never did. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Hers against me, mine against reality. Nicole tried everything. She cycled through strategies like a desperate saleswoman, pitching a product nobody wanted to buy. First came the apologies. Deep, sobbing, mascara-running apologies delivered at all hours. She'd appear at the guest room door at 2 in the morning, swearing it meant nothing, swearing it was just a moment of weakness, swearing she'd never see him again. "Brian, please." Her voice through the wood, cracked and raw. "I know I don't deserve it, but please just talk to me." "Go to bed, Nicole." "I can't sleep, I can't eat. I feel like I'm dying inside." "That's the guilt. You should get used to it." Silence. Then footsteps retreating. I didn't feel victorious. I felt like a man performing surgery on himself without anesthesia. Necessary, but brutal. Then came the blame shifting. "You were always working," she hissed one evening when the kids were at a birthday party. "You were never present, never interested. You never touched me anymore, never looked at me like you used to. What was I supposed to do?" "Talk to me," I said. "Go to counseling, file for divorce." Any of those options didn't involve lying to me for 2 years while another man's hands were all over you. You made me feel invisible, like I was just the housekeeper with conjugal benefits. So you found someone who made you feel visible? Tell me, Nicole, when Derek was complimenting your body and telling you how special you were, did he ever mention his wife? His 3 teenage children? Or did you both just pretend those people didn't exist? She didn't have a response to that. Then came the denial. "It was just flirting," she insisted another day, finding me in the kitchen. "It never went further than what you saw. I swear to God, Brian, I swear on the children's lives." I showed her the hotel records. 14 different hotels over 24 months. "This one's in Phoenix," I said, pointing. "You told me you were at a team-building retreat. This one's in Chicago. That was the client appreciation dinner. And this one," I tapped the page, "is dated on our engagement anniversary, 2 years ago. You said you couldn't get a flight home." Her face went white. "Were you with him that night? While I was home with champagne and reservations I couldn't use?" She stopped claiming it was just flirting after that. Then came the threats. "I'll tell everyone you're abusive," she said one night, her voice low and dangerous. "I'll tell them you hit me. Who do you think they'll believe? The crying wife or the ice-cold husband? The PI I hired who's been documenting your behavior for the past 3 weeks. The therapist I've started seeing. The neighbors who've seen me take the kids to school every morning with a smile on my face. The school counselor who's noticed you've missed Emma's last 3 events." I kept my voice pleasant. "Go ahead, Nicole. File a false police report. See how that plays in family court. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I'm a forensic accountant. Thinking of everything is what I do." The threats stopped. Finally, and this was the one that almost got me, came the seduction. She appeared at the guest room door one night in lingerie I recognized from the Venmo receipts. Expensive, black lace, the kind of thing you buy when you're trying to impress someone new. "I'm still your wife," she said softly. "I made a mistake. A horrible, terrible mistake. But we have 11 years, Brian. 2 children. Doesn't that mean anything?" I looked at her standing there in another man's lingerie, and I felt something hollow open up in my chest. "It meant everything to me," I said. "That's why this hurts so much." I closed the door. Gavin Price was everything Ray Castellano promised. Thorough, discreet, and absolutely ruthless in his pursuit of truth. He was a compact man in his 50s, gray-haired and soft-spoken, the kind of guy you'd walk past in a grocery store without a second glance. Which, I suppose, was the point. When I met him at the coffee shop, he was wearing khakis and a polo shirt, looking like someone's suburban dad grabbing a morning caffeine fix. "Mr. Lawson," he said, shaking my hand with a grip firmer than I expected. "Ray speaks highly of you. Says you're the type who dots every I and crosses every T." "Occupational hazard." He smiled slightly. "In my business, that's a compliment. The emotional ones make my job harder." They want to confront before we're ready. They tip off the target. They throw away 6 months of work because they couldn't wait one more week. He stirred his coffee. You're not going to do that, are you? No. Good. Tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, even if you think it's not important. I told him. All of it. Miami, the photos, the financial discrepancies, the late nights and early mornings and subtle changes I'd dismissed over the past 2 years. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small leather-bound notebook. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I've been doing this for 20 years, he finally said. Cheating spouses are my bread and butter. The patterns are always the same. They think they're being clever, but they're not. They leave trails everywhere. Digital footprints, hotel records, credit card statements. In 20 years, I've never met a cheater who was actually smart about it. What do you need from me? Permission to follow the trail, and patience. He leaned forward. This Derek Ashford, you said he's her boss? VP of Sales. She's a regional manager. Gavin nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. That's more complicated. Supervisor-subordinate relationships, especially in corporate settings, there are usually policies against that. Strict policies. And if the company didn't know, or worse, if they helped cover it up, that's liability. Major liability. I don't care about the company. You might. He set down his coffee cup. Here's what I've learned in 20 years, Mr. Lawson. Men like Derek Ashford don't cheat once. They cheat until they get caught. And even then, they usually keep cheating. They see women as conquests, subordinates as opportunities. Your wife isn't his first. I'd bet my license on it. Something cold moved through my chest. What makes you say that? Experience. Men in power positions who pursue women they supervise. It's a pattern, not a one-time lapse in judgment. The power differential is part of the thrill for them. They get off on it. He shrugged. If I'm right, there will be a paper trail. HR complaints, settlements, transfers, something. And if you find that, then you'll have leverage beyond just the divorce. You'll have options. He was right. Over the next 2 weeks, Gavin built a dossier that would have impressed the FBI agents he used to work with. Hotel records confirmed what I'd already suspected. Derek and Nicole had been meeting regularly for almost 2.5 years. All of it billed to Vertex's corporate card as client entertainment. The emails were worse. Using the discovery process that Ray had already initiated, we obtained Nicole's work correspondence. The messages between her and Derek read like a bad romance novel. Declarations of love, plans for the future, explicit descriptions of what they wanted to do to each other. In one email dated 8 months earlier, Derek wrote, "When the kids are older, we'll tell them. We'll be together properly. I promise." She'd believed him. That was almost the saddest part. But the real revelation came on day 18 of the investigation. Gavin called me at work. "I need you to come to my office. There's something you should see." I met him an hour later. He had a folder on his desk, thick with documents. Derek Ashford has 2 prior HR complaints against him at Vertex, Gavin said, sliding the folder across to me. Both from female employees. Both alleging inappropriate relationships. Both quietly settled with NDAs and cash payments. I opened the folder. The details were redacted, but the pattern was clear. 2 women. 2 settlements. Both within the past 6 years. "Your wife isn't special," Gavin said, not unkindly. "She's a type. Ashford targets women who work under him. It's a power thing." Something cold settled in my stomach. Does she know? I doubt it. Men like Ashford are good at making each woman feel like she's the exception. The one who's different. The one he really loves. I closed the folder. What else? Gavin's expression shifted. Here's where it gets interesting. Ashford's been expensing these affairs, Not just with your wife, but going back years. Hotels, dinners, gifts. All of it written off as business expenses. We're talking $47,000 over 2 years with Nicole alone. Add in the previous affairs and we're probably looking at double that. That's fraud. Yes, corporate fraud. Which means Vertex has a problem. Either they knew and covered it up, or they didn't know, and they're going to be very unhappy when they find out. He paused. There's also his wife. I looked up. He's married? Pamela Ashford, pediatric surgeon at Presbyterian. 3 teenage kids, married 22 years. Gavin shook his head. These guys always have wives. It's part of the profile. They need someone at home to maintain the image. I sat back in my chair, trying to process the scope of it. My wife, Derek's wife, 2 other women before her, a corporation covering up misconduct, fraud, lies stacked on lies stacked on lies. What do you want to do with this? Gavin asked. I thought about Emma asking why Mommy was always on the phone. I thought about Tyler's soccer games that Nicole had missed. I thought about 11 years of marriage dissolving like sugar in water. Everything, I said. I want to do everything. Emma broke my heart on a Tuesday night. I was tucking her in, going through our usual routine, blanket adjusted just so, stuffed rabbit positioned correctly, nightlight angled toward the door. She was quiet, which wasn't unusual. She'd been quieter since Nicole and I started sleeping in separate rooms. Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart? Why does Mommy always talk on the phone in the closet? I froze with my hand on her blanket. What do you mean? Sometimes when you're at work, Mommy goes in her closet and talks on the phone for a long time, and she calls someone baby. But it's not you or Tyler. The words hit me like a physical blow. My 9-year-old daughter had noticed. My 9-year-old daughter had been carrying this observation around, trying to make sense of it with her child's logic. I sat on the edge of her bed. Sometimes, I said carefully, adults have complicated friendships. Grown-up stuff that's hard to explain. Is that why you and Mommy are fighting? We're not fighting exactly. We're just figuring some things out. She looked at me with those serious brown eyes, so much like her mother's. Are you going to get divorced? Maya's parents got divorced. She has 2 bedrooms now. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her everything was fine, that Mommy and Daddy loved each other, that nothing would change. But I couldn't. I'd already learned what lies cost. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But I want you to know that no matter what happens between me and Mommy, we both love you and Tyler more than anything in the world. That's never going to change. Okay? She nodded slowly. Okay. I kissed her forehead. Get some sleep. I walked to my office and added her words to the file. Documentation. Evidence. Ammunition. I hated that I'd become the kind of man who documented his daughter's heartbreak. The corporate bomb detonated on a Thursday. I had Jack Sullivan, my old Army buddy who'd transitioned into corporate security, help me deliver the information package. It went to Vertex's chief compliance officer and the board's ethics committee through an anonymous channel. No fingerprints, no connection to me. Just a manila envelope full of evidence. The package contained everything. Expense reports showing $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Emails documenting the affair between a VP and his direct report. Records of 2 previous HR complaints and settlements. Evidence that Nicole had received 2 promotions during the affair. Promotions that could be challenged by any other employee as discriminatory. I knew it would burn. I just didn't know how fast. Vertex launched an internal investigation within 48 hours. By the following Monday, Derek Ashford was on administrative leave. By Friday, he was terminated for cause. Nicole got the call the same day. I was in the kitchen making dinner when she came home, her face pale, her hands shaking. I got fired. I didn't look up from the onions I was chopping. I heard. Someone sent documents to the board. Emails, expense reports. They knew everything. She sank into a kitchen chair, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. They said I accepted promotions I knew were unearned. They said I failed to report a conflict of interest. They're saying Derek might face criminal charges. The FBI, Brian. The FBI. That sounds serious. You did this. It wasn't a question this time. She was staring at me with something between horror and grudging respect. You did all of this. I set down the knife and met her eyes. No, Nicole. You did this. You made the choice to sleep with your boss for 2 years. You made the choice to lie about it. You made the choice to accept promotions you didn't earn while other people were passed over. I didn't force you into any of it. You destroyed my career, my reputation. Everything I spent 15 years building, you destroyed it. The moment you decided your affair was more important than your integrity. She laughed then, a bitter, broken sound. God listened to you. So righteous, so superior. Do you have any idea what I've lost? A job you got by sleeping with your boss? A reputation built on lies? A lover who was using you exactly the way he used the women before you? I went back to the onions. Cry me a river, Nicole. The women before me? Her voice faltered. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't Derek tell you? You weren't his first subordinate romance. Not even close. There were 2 before you. Both settled quietly with NDAs and cash payments. You were just the latest in a pattern. I scraped the onions into the pan. You thought you were special. You weren't. You were a type. The color drained from her face completely. You're lying. I'm a forensic accountant. I don't lie about evidence. It's all documented if you want to see it. She didn't want to see it. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? I'm the man you betrayed, and I'm done pretending that doesn't matter. The corporate fallout was spectacular, but it was just the appetizer. A week after Vertex terminated Derek, the FBI opened an investigation into his expense fraud. What started as $47,000 with Nicole quickly ballooned to over $200,000 across multiple years and multiple affairs. Corporate fraud at that level meant federal charges. Meanwhile, Derek's carefully constructed life was collapsing from every direction. His wife, Pamela, had filed for divorce. I knew because I was the one who'd sent her the evidence. I debated that decision for 3 days. Pamela Ashford hadn't done anything wrong. She was, like me, a victim of her spouse's choices. Did she deserve to know? Or was I just spreading the misery around, trying to make sure everyone heard as much as I did? In the end, I decided she deserved the truth. What she did with it was her choice. I sent a carefully worded letter with copies of the key evidence. I offered to meet if she needed corroboration. She called me 2 days later. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The way people sound when they've moved past anger into something colder. Something calculated. Mr. Lawson, this is Pamela Ashford. Dr. Ashford, I'm sorry for the circumstances. Don't be. There was a pause. Can we meet? We met for coffee the next day at a quiet cafe outside the city. Neutral territory, far from the suburbs where we might be recognized. Pamela was striking in person. Tall, silver blonde, with the composed demeanor of someone who dealt with life or death decisions for a living. I've suspected for years, she said, stirring her latte with precision. The late nights that didn't add up. The business trips where he'd forget to charge his phone for 12 hours. The way he'd shower as soon as he got home, every time like he was washing something off. You know what's funny? I actually convinced myself it was cologne, that he was just trying to smell nice before he saw me. I'm sorry. She waved away the apology. Don't be. I made my choice too. I chose to ignore what I knew. I chose the house in the nice neighborhood and the country club membership and the appearance of a perfect family. She looked at me directly, her eyes sharp. I needed proof for the prenup. Real proof, not just suspicion. You've given me exactly what I needed. So we're even. We're allies. She smiled. A cold, thin smile that reminded me of Ray Castellano. I have resources, family money, plus my salary. I have connections. My brother is a state senator. And I have motivation. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we coordinate. File on the same day if possible. Use the same evidence chain. Present a united front. She leaned forward. Men like Derek depend on keeping their victims separate. They thrive in silence. What do you think happens when the silence breaks? I thought about it. They collapse. Exactly. Let's make him collapse together. That's how Pamela Ashford and I became unlikely allies. Two betrayed spouses, armed with evidence and expensive lawyers, ready to make our respective cheaters pay for every lie they'd ever told. The divorce proceedings were brutal, but not in the way I expected. I thought Nicole would fight. I thought she'd drag it out, contest everything, make me bleed for every asset. She had the capacity for it. I'd seen her negotiate million-dollar contracts, wear down resistant clients, turn a no into a yes through sheer force of will. I'd prepared for war. Instead, she collapsed. Without her job, without Derek, without the support network she'd taken for granted, Nicole had nothing left. Her own family, parents, sister, friends, had all quietly distanced themselves once the truth came out. Her mother had called me once, early on, to tell me what a disappointment her daughter had become. I didn't raise her to be this person, she said. I don't know where we went wrong. I didn't have an answer for her. Nicole's isolation was almost complete. The friends who'd once gathered for wine nights and book clubs had stopped calling. Her sister, who'd initially taken her side, went silent after seeing the evidence. Even her college roommate, her maid of honor at our wedding, had quietly unfollowed her on social media. Her attorney, a competent woman named Sarah Wallace, called Ray Castellano after the first round of discovery. Mrs. Lawson is willing to negotiate, Ray told me over the phone. They know they can't win. The prenup is airtight. The evidence is overwhelming. The custody evaluation, well, you saw the report. I had seen it. The court-appointed psychologist had not been kind. She'd noted Nicole's erratic emotional state, her missed appointments, her inability to name basic facts about the children's lives. In one interview, Nicole had broken down crying and spent 20 minutes talking about Derek instead of answering questions about Emma and Tyler. What are they offering? She'll accept primary custody going to you. She'll waive claims to your inheritance. She's asking for 30% of marital assets and modest alimony. I considered it. 30% was more than she deserved, but dragging this out would hurt the kids more than it hurt her. 20%. No alimony. She can have the car. I keep the house and the children. That's harsh. She spent 18 months siphoning marital funds to pay for hotel rooms with Derek Ashford. She can take the 20% and be grateful I'm not pushing for less, Nicole's attorney countered. We negotiated. In the end, she got 25% and a used Honda. I got everything else. She signed the papers on a gray Wednesday afternoon. I watched her hand shake as she wrote her name, the last time she'd ever sign it as Nicole Lawson. She didn't look at me. Afterward, Ray and I stood in the courthouse parking lot. The sky was heavy with clouds that couldn't decide whether to rain. It's done, he said. Congratulations. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Is it always like this? I asked. Like what? Winning and losing at the same time. Ray clapped me on the shoulder. Every divorce is a failure, even when it's the right choice. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and your kids. That's not nothing. I nodded and walked to my car. The paternity test was the twist I didn't see coming. 6 weeks after she signed the divorce papers, Nicole showed up at my door. It was a Sunday afternoon. I remember because the kids were inside finishing homework, and I'd just come in from mowing the lawn. She was thinner than I'd ever seen her face gaunt, her clothes hanging loose, and she was visibly, undeniably pregnant. "I need to talk to you." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so the kids wouldn't hear. The smell of fresh-cut grass hung in the air between us. "What is this?" "I'm pregnant." She put a hand on her belly, protective, instinctive. 12 weeks. The math didn't work. I knew it didn't work because I'd been sleeping in the guest room for 3 months, and before that, our intimate life had been sporadic at best. The last time we'd been together, actually together, was back in October, when she'd come home from a conference feeling guilty and reached for me in the dark. "It's not mine," I said. "It could be." Her voice cracked. "We were together in January." "I haven't touched you since October, Nicole. I kept track. It's documented in my journal, the same way everything else was documented. My attorney will want a paternity test, and if by some miracle it's mine, we'll discuss it." "A paternity test?" She laughed, that bitter, broken sound again. "Like I'm some stranger off the street." "You are a stranger. The woman I married wouldn't have done what you did. The woman I married doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did." She started crying. I waited it out. Tears didn't move me anymore. The test came back 3 weeks later. Ray Castellano called me at work. "It's not yours," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "The father is Derek Ashford." I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Of course it is. This changes the custody calculus somewhat. She's going to have another child, Derek's child, while trying to maintain visitation with yours. Family court won't look favorably on the instability. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we let nature take its course. She's unemployed, pregnant by a man who's facing federal charges, and increasingly isolated. The situation will deteriorate without any action on our part. He was right. The revelation that she was carrying Derek's child destroyed whatever sympathy Nicole might have garnered. Her own attorney called Ray to discuss accelerating the settlement. Nicole Lawson, soon to be Nicole Coleman again, had gambled everything on a man who'd left a trail of discarded women behind him. Now she was carrying his child while he prepared for sentencing, and he wanted nothing to do with either of them. "You ruined my life," he'd reportedly told her during their last phone call, which Gavin's contact in the phone company had recorded. "My marriage, my career, everything. And now you want me to be happy about a baby? Derek, please, don't contact me again." I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a grim satisfaction. Derek Ashford's day of reckoning came on a Tuesday in March. I didn't attend the sentencing. I had no desire to see him, but I followed the coverage. He pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 18 months in a minimum security facility. $350,000 in restitution. Permanent bar from the pharmaceutical industry. His attorney released a statement about personal failings and taking responsibility. Derek himself said nothing. I heard later that his children refused to appear in court to support him. Pamela Ashford sent me a text that evening. 18 months isn't enough, but it'll do. Thank you for everything. P. I replied with a simple, "Take care of yourself." She'd remarried within a year, I heard later. A colleague from the hospital. Someone stable. Someone who came home when he said he would. I was happy for her. Nicole came to see me one last time. It was 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I was getting the kids ready for bed when the doorbell rang. She stood on the porch, hugely pregnant now, her face lined with exhaustion. Her coat was thin for the weather. She'd clearly sold or pawned whatever nice things she'd once owned. "Can I come in?" I stepped outside instead, closing the door behind me. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the smell of someone's wood fire from down the block. "What do you need?" "I need—" She swallowed hard. "I don't have anywhere to go. Derek won't take my calls. He blames me for everything. His wife, ex-wife, got everything in the divorce. I've applied to 40 jobs and nobody will touch me. My name is poison in pharma. Even retail positions. They Google me and see the articles. I'm sorry to hear that." "Brian." She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in with surprising strength. "I made a mistake. A horrible, terrible mistake. I know that. I own that. But I'm still the mother of your children. We had 11 years together. Doesn't any of that mean anything?" I looked at her standing there on my porch, 7 months pregnant with another man's baby, begging for help from the husband she'd betrayed. I thought about 2 years of lies. I thought about the strawberries and the hotel rooms and the emails and the way she'd said, "I love you," while someone else's hands were on her body. I thought about Emma asking why Mommy talked to someone named Baby in the closet. "A mistake," I said quietly, "is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something hurtful in anger. What you did wasn't a mistake, Nicole. It was a pattern of choices. For 2 years, 730 days, you woke up every morning and chose to continue the lie. You chose to betray our family for hotel weekends with a man who was using you the same way he used the women before you. I didn't know about them. Would it have mattered? If Derek had told you on day 1 that you were just the latest in a series, would you have walked away? Or would you have convinced yourself that you were different, that you were special?" She didn't answer. We both knew what the answer was. "I hope you find peace, Nicole. I really do. But you won't find it here. Please." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face in the cold air. "I have nowhere else to go. My parents won't help. My sister says I made my bed. I'm going to have this baby alone and I don't know how. My attorney has information about family services, support programs, resources for single mothers. I'll have him send it to you." "That's it? After everything we were to each other?" "Everything we were to each other," I said softly, "was a lie you told me. Every morning. For 2 years." I turned toward the door. "Brian." "Goodbye, Nicole." I closed the door, locked it. I stood there for a long moment, listening to her footsteps retreat down the walk. The car door, the engine, the sound of her driving away into her new life, the one she'd chosen, whether she admitted it or not. Then I went upstairs to finish reading Tyler his bedtime story. He wanted Where the Wild Things Are again. I held him close and did all the voices, and when he fell asleep against my shoulder, I sat there in the dark and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just exhaustion. And the first fragile stirrings of something that might, someday, become peace. 6 months later, I met Allison Webb at a school fundraiser. My therapist had been encouraging me to put myself out there, a phrase I hated, but I'd finally reached the point where the empty side of the bed felt less like a wound and more like a choice. I was healing, slowly, in the way broken bones heal. Imperfectly, but stronger at the break. Allison was the veterinarian who'd treated Murphy after he ate something questionable at the dog park. Brown hair, warm smile, the kind of laugh that made you want to hear it again. We'd talked briefly at the clinic while Murphy got his stomach pumped, and I'd thought, in that distant, analytical way I thought about everything now, that under different circumstances I might have found her attractive. At the fundraiser, she found me. "Mr. Lawson?" She was holding 2 glasses of wine, looking slightly embarrassed. "I'm Dr. Webb. Your dog tried to eat a sock?" "The sock lived, barely." She laughed. "I remember. Murphy, right? Sweet dog. Questionable decision-making skills. He's not alone in that." We talked. About dogs at first, then about kids, She had a daughter in Tyler's grade, then about the fundraiser, then about nothing in particular. At some point, the conversation shifted, the way conversations do, into more personal territory. "I heard you're going through a divorce," she said. Not prying, just acknowledging. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was necessary." "I know what you mean." She sipped her wine. "My husband left 3 years ago. Younger woman, naturally. So original. So we're both members of the same sad club." "The Betrayed Spouse Club?" "Yeah, I've got the membership card." She smiled. That warm, genuine smile. "Does it come with benefits?" "Wisdom, wariness, really good attorneys." She laughed. That warm, genuine sound, and something tight in my chest loosened just a little. We took things slow. Dinner first, just the two of us. No kids, testing the waters. Then coffee. Then a movie. Then weekend outings with the kids, carefully orchestrated to seem casual. Emma was skeptical at first. "Is she your girlfriend?" she asked one morning after Allison had come over for breakfast. "She's a friend, a good friend." "Mom had good friends too." The words landed like a slap, but I kept my expression neutral. "Allison is different, I promise." "How do you know?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Because she tells me the truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it would be easier to lie." Emma considered this with her 9-year-old wisdom. "I guess that's good." Tyler was easier to win over. Allison let him help at the clinic, holding the stethoscope, feeding treats to recovering patients, wearing the tiny scrubs she'd special ordered just for him. "She let me hear a dog's heart," he told me breathlessly after one visit. "It was going really fast. She said that's because dogs live faster than people." That's one way to put it. I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up, or a paleontologist, or maybe both. Why not both? He beamed at me, and I realized that this simple moment of fatherly encouragement was what I'd almost lost. What Nicole's choices had nearly cost us. I wasn't going to let anything threaten it again. The call from Pamela Ashford came on a Saturday morning, almost a year after everything had gone down. I was making pancakes for the kids, Mickey Mouse shapes for Tyler, regular circles for Emma, who considered herself too sophisticated for cartoon food, when my phone buzzed. "Brian, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "Not at all, just breakfast duty. How are you?" "Good. Better than good, actually." She paused. "I remarried last month. A colleague from the hospital, David. He's solid, dependable, all the things Derek pretended to be." "Congratulations, that's wonderful news." "Thank you, but that's not why I'm calling." Another pause. "My brother is hosting a fundraiser next month. He's the state senator. I think I mentioned that?" "You did." "I'd like you to come, as my guest." She laughed softly. "Not romantically. God, no. But I thought, we've both been through something. We came out the other side. Maybe it would be nice to celebrate that. Good wine, pleasant company, and the satisfaction of watching people who don't know our story wonder how we know each other." I found myself smiling. "That does sound satisfying. Is that a yes?" "I'll bring the good wine." A year changes a lot. The house was quiet now, but it was a peaceful quiet. The kids had adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient, it turns out, especially when they have one parent who shows up consistently. Emma was thriving in 4th grade. Tyler had discovered a passion for dinosaurs and wouldn't stop talking about becoming a paleontologist. Nicole had given birth to a boy. She was raising him alone in a small apartment across town, working at a retail pharmacy for $18 an hour. Derek, released from prison after serving 14 months, paid minimal child support and had never met the child. I thought I would feel triumphant about her downfall. I didn't. I felt sad, mostly. Sad for the person she could have been if she'd made different choices. Sad for the child who would grow up without his father. Sad for the waste of it all. But the sadness didn't consume me. I'd learned that you could feel something without letting it define you. Allison and I got engaged on a Tuesday evening. Nothing fancy. Just the two of us on the back porch, watching the kids chase fireflies in the yard while Murphy barked at shadows. The ring had been my grandmother's, a simple diamond in a vintage setting. I'd thought about buying something new, something that didn't carry the weight of history, but in the end, I wanted Allison to have something real. I know this isn't what either of us planned, I said, the ring box in my hand. I know we both came into this with baggage, scars, trust issues, all of it. But I've spent the last year falling in love with you, and I don't want to spend the next year pretending I haven't. She looked at me with those warm brown eyes that had seen their own share of betrayal and come out the other side. And I saw my future there. Not perfect, not guaranteed, but real, honest. The kind of future you build with someone who understands that love is a choice you make every day. You're sure? She asked softly. After everything? I'm sure because of everything. You taught me that trust isn't dead. It just needs the right person. Yes, she said. Obviously, yes. Emma found me in my office a week later, the night before we were going to tell the kids about the engagement. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart, what's up? She climbed into my lap. She was getting too big for it, but neither of us mentioned that. I like Allison. I'm glad. She makes you smile. You didn't smile for a long time after Mommy left. She played with the button on my shirt. Are you happy? I thought about the question. Really thought about it. A year ago, I'd stood behind a palm tree at the Fontainebleau, Miami Beach and watched my life collapse. I'd felt my heart stop and my mind sharpen, felt the transformation from trusting husband to calculating strategist happen in real time. I'd built a case like I was prosecuting a war criminal. I'd dismantled 2 careers and 2 marriages and hadn't lost a single night's sleep over any of it. Was I proud of all of it? No. I'd been ruthless in ways that still sometimes surprised me. I'd used my daughter's observations as evidence. I'd coordinated with a stranger to destroy 2 people who'd betrayed us both. I'd shown no mercy when mercy might have been the nobler choice. But I'd also protected my children. I'd told the truth when lies would have been easier. I'd rebuilt my life from the wreckage someone else had created. And now I had Allison beside me, and 2 kids who still thought their dad could fix anything, and a future that didn't depend on someone else's fidelity. Yeah, sweetheart, I said, hugging Emma close. I really am. The last time I saw Nicole was at Emma's school play. She was in the back row, alone, watching Emma perform her 3 lines as villager number 4. I spotted her during the curtain call. She looked older than her 37 years. Tired, worn down, the glow from Miami long since faded. After the show, she approached us. Allison's hand tightened on mine. She was wonderful, Nicole said, her eyes on Emma. You should be proud. I am. An awkward silence stretched between us. Tyler was tugging on my arm, wanting to go get ice cream. Emma was with her friends, showing off her costume. Brian, Nicole stopped, started again. I know I can't undo anything. I know sorry doesn't cover it, but I want you to know that I think about what I destroyed every single day. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 11 years. The mother of my children. The person who'd broken me and somehow, in breaking me, set me free. I hope you find peace, Nicole. I really do. Do you mean that? I wouldn't say it if I didn't. She nodded slowly. Thank you for being a good father. Better than I deserved. She walked away. I watched her go, watched her get into a dented sedan and drive out of the parking lot, and felt something that might have been closure. You okay? Allison asked. Yeah, I squeezed her hand. Let's get that ice cream. There's no moral to this story, no grand lesson about karma or justice or the arc of the universe bending toward fairness. Sometimes cheaters prosper. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the wronged party rebuilds something better. Sometimes they spiral into bitterness and never recover. I got lucky. I had skills that let me fight back. I had resources, financial, emotional, professional, that not everyone has. And I had 2 kids who needed me to be functional, which forced me to process my anger instead of drowning in it. Would I do it again? The investigation, the corporate bomb, the coordinated destruction? Yes, without hesitation. Not because revenge felt good. It didn't, particularly. But because actions have consequences, and people who think they can lie and cheat and betray without repercussions need to learn otherwise. Derek Ashford had done this to multiple women before Nicole. He would have done it again if no one had stopped him. Nicole had chosen lies over honesty, selfishness over family, momentary pleasure over lasting commitment. They made their choices. I made mine. The difference is, I can live with mine. Last week, Emma asked me what the most important thing I'd ever learned was. She's working on a school project about life lessons, and apparently, I'm supposed to have wisdom. I thought about it for a while. Trust your instincts, I finally said. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And when you find out you were right, don't let anyone make you feel crazy for knowing. That's pretty good, Dad. Thanks, kid. She went back to her homework. I went back to making dinner. Through the window, I could see Tyler in the backyard, throwing a ball for Murphy. Allison came home an hour later, kissed me hello, asked about my day. Normal. Ordinary. The kind of evening I used to take for granted before I learned how quickly it could all disappear. I don't take anything for granted anymore. Not the quiet dinners or the bedtime stories or the woman who chose me knowing everything I'd been through. Not the 2 children who still look at me like I have answers. Not the peace I fought for and won. The roses cost $47. The lesson cost a lot more. But I paid it. And I'm still here. That has to count for something.